Welcome back everybody. Unfortunately I'm delivering this sorry sight. It's the Ducati Panigale 1199S engine, and yes, the bottom end has failed. Now at least I think that's what it is. I think it's the bottom end. Basically we were at Alton Park absolutely having the bike, came out of a corner flat out, all of a sudden it started vibrating like mad, like seriously vibrating. I didn't know what was going on, pulled into the pits, revving it up in the pits, it's vibrating with the rev. So it's definitely something bottom end related. I don't know whether it's a bearing or it's one of the shells on the bottom end on the crank or something like that. I'm not sure, but in today's video, we're gonna rip this whole engine apart, pull the heads off and see what's inside. Now, upon stripping the bike down, we stumbled across some evidence which I think is the reason this has happened. This here is the heat exchanger for the oil. It doesn't have an oil cooler on the bike. This is the exchanger, so it is an oil cooler, but we run coolant into it and that feeds back to the front radiators and oil circulates in here from the engine, that cools it. But we found this pipe was blocked on the return to the radiator, so we reckon that's cooked the bearings on the bottom of the bike. Now, if you've been following the channel and you've subscribed, then you'd know that I've got this lovely Ducati V4S. It's an absolutely stunning bike. I did buy it as a write-off, but I've now repaired it to its former glory and I have sold the bike now because I've done some videos on it and I want to move on to the next project, which is obviously the 1199. Somebody's picking it up next week, which is good news. So let's get straight into stripping this motor completely down. We're going to rip everything off it and we'll do it in a bit of a time lapse. All right, now that time lapse may have looked straightforward, but it definitely wasn't. It's taken me about a week to do it after work and stuff. I've had to spend about 100 quid on tools to get all these bits apart, you know, to split the casings, to get all the gears off the crank, like here, all the parts that were on here were all pressed on. So, and special tools like castle nut tools, this one here for the puller to get the flywheel off the crank. It's been a bit of a headache. However, we're now into the nitty gritty bits. We've got the most important parts laid out here for you guys to see. This is where the problems are. I've checked the bearings on the pistons as we can see here, and I don't even see in the light, but there's nothing really on there that's that bad. They all look pretty, you know, normal and good to me. Same on this piston here, all good. Bearings are fine there. And one thing I'd actually quite like to mention quickly is the absolute whopping size of these pistons. Look at the size of that. Obviously it's an 1199, so each piston's 599cc sort of size. That is massive. Look at it. Like, huge piston there. Tiny crown that. Lovely little like polished up, like semi-polished conrod here. It's quite a pretty sort of design there. If you compare this piston here to like a piston out of my TDR that I rebuilt, you know, look at the size of that. The size difference is unbelievable when you look at that. Look at the size of it. They're absolutely ginormous. So I guess that's where these engines are sort of trying to get 200 horsepower from. You get it from having a big piston like that. And what's also really cool is the way the crank is. The crank design, the firing order and everything. Obviously both pistons sit on the same journal there, which is a bit unusual for a V-twin. So they're going to sort of all go round together. That's actually a really cool thing to look into. If you look into the firing order and how this crank works with them both being on this part of the journal, very interesting how it works with the piston, because it's not just one going up and one being at the bottom of the stroke. So you won't get one at the TDC and then one right at the bottom. They're always sort of just below each other and they sort of rotate around the engine. It's really cool, so go check that out. Moving over to the crank bearings and the casings on, this is the right hand side casing. You can see, if I turn it this way, look at that. You can see the wear there. There's a big score mark on it in the bottom there. And that's obviously something's got in there and worn that out. So that is the end of this engine, really. Well, it's not. You could actually put this all back together if you wanted to, because if you look at the crank, There doesn't appear to be any marks on there, but you'd have to get that measured to make sure it's all good if you're going to put it back together. But whilst I've been doing this video and I've stripped all the bike down, I've decided I'm going to break the bike for parts. I bought the bike cheap. We had a bit of fun on it anyway. Unfortunately, I didn't get any riding videos of it, which is a shame. However, we've explored what's in a Ducati 1199 engine, so that's been cool. I've enjoyed taking it all apart. It's been wicked. I've already actually sold some of this stuff on eBay, which is great. So if you're looking for any parts for a Ducati 1199, I've got loads on eBay listed now. I've just spent the whole weekend listing everything, even all these internal parts, and they're really cheap because I'm breaking down the engine, so not selling as a whole thing. So things like this are really expensive from Ducati, like $3,500 I think or something for this crank. Pistons are expensive, but it's all going cheap. So check out on eBay for 1199 parts if you need them. Thank you very much for watching this video. I've enjoyed it. I hope you've enjoyed seeing what's inside the engine, and we'll see you on the next one. I'm about to buy another bike. I think we're going to get like more of a touring bike. We're going to do some trips. So stay tuned, hit the subscribe button. If you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up. Any comments, I'll be in the comment section. So put some in there and I'll be happy to answer any questions. We'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye.